Welcome, everybody, to the Making Awesome podcast. This is episode 205, where we're chasing unicorns today. And no, you haven't found yourself in some random Joe Rogan show. We're going to be talking all about input shaping. Oh, I can hear myself. We're going to be talking all about input shaping with my buddy Reth here, who aka is Vince. And you got a fun background, but I want to hear the Backstreet Boys from you first. The who you are, the where you from, the what you did, and as long as you love me.
And what was the last one?
As long as you love me.
Oh, I always love you, Grant.
It's the lyrics to the song. Yeah. Anyways.
So I'm Reth. Who I am is Reth. Where I'm from Fresno, and Central Valley, California. Third one.
What you did.
What I did. Oh, what I do or what I did.
Technically, both is fine.
So I'm a patent examiner at the United States Patent and Trademark Office, doing semiconductors. And I got into 3D printing maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. My wife saw something really cool and she wanted it. And I said, oh, we need a 3D printer. Hem and hawed and got a Mark III. And then got a little disappointed at how slow it was printing. So I looked around and the Voron came to mind. So I got into Vorons and now I have like 7 of them.
The collection grows.
It does.
Yeah.
Most of them were Tridents.
I haven't tried it. And this is nice because we haven't run input shaping on it yet. I am a clipper moron, a Voron moron, a generalized moron if you look at the comments on some of our YouTube videos. But, you know, my best understanding of input shaping is that it is effectively physical noise cancellation. So like what you would get with, you know, headphones and earbuds where they will cancel out the surrounding environment. Input shaping does that mechanically.
It's the same way, right? So when you're noise canceling headphones, it'll get a noise in and then it will send the opposite. So like you get 2 waves crashing.
Yep.
Right. And they are opposite and they cancel each other out. It's the same kind of thing, except input shaper is throwing in different impulses into the motor algorithm of Clipper to basically cancel out the resonant noise. So it
allows it to move.
Yes.
Rather than, yeah, there's
that's a video on YouTube, right, where they have like a little pendulum, and it moves like this, and without the noise, it's going back and forth, and then with the input shaper, it just like straight like this. And it's the same thing.
That's literally the GIF that we use when we show input shaping in a video. It is the one with that little T that vibrates.
Right.
Quick kind of housekeeping stuff. Do not give us money this episode. Mods, if you don't mind, there is a link in the description. It's the first link in the description. It is to Reth's charity, the 3D Printing Elves. If you guys want to give any money this episode, I want you to use the donate link for 3D Printing Elves and give them some cash to help them give more toys out to kids that need it this holiday season. So instead, I do not want a dime from any of you this episode. No money. Give it all to Reth's charity. And if you happen to be a business or an individual, it is tax deductible. So there is that, because you are an actual 501c3, which is awesome.
We started that this year. So we've been doing Toys for Tots through IC3D. Mm-hmm. And one of the big issues we had was we're always running into filament issues. Couldn't get enough filament. So we decided, let's just do it ourselves. So we still doing the IC3D for Toys for Tots, but we've expanded it now in the Fresno area. Mm-hmm. So we're giving to places like schools, for elementary schools, the Treasure Toy Box, CASA for foster youth. Mm-hmm. We brought some toys to the courthouse because a lot of kids go through the family court system, and just something for them to play with while they're sitting there. And basically any organization or any group that have kids in the Fresno area or Madera counties, we just deliver them toys all year round.
And that's And that's why, no money to us. Go give money to the charity. And in fact, if YouTube will let me see how much we make from post-ad revenue on this video, I will donate every dime of it to you guys, because you're actually doing the right thing here. You know, the goal for us is to be able to support companies and charities, right? I mean, obviously we support charities. I literally had my head shaved in the UK and raised over $6,000 for the Sanjay Mortimer
You
Foundation.
look real sexy.
Hey, well, look, hold on, wait a minute. Since most people don't know this yet, I'm going to take off the headphones so I can't hear you. But your boy actually got a haircut, okay? So all of you that have been yelling at me to get a haircut, I got a haircut, all right? So
I used to do something similar. I'd grow my hair out long when I was younger, and I'd have it cut and donate it to Locks for Love.
so that was an interesting one.
For kids.
We couldn't do that, because once hair is off your head, it is now considered human remains. And you cannot fly back to the United States with that, because they can't validate that it came off of your head.
You could glue it back on.
You know, we thought about that, but 3D Gloop did not want to sponsor that. I tried. I did not try. It's methyl. No, that would be really, really dangerous. Do not put Gloop in your hair. No, but we found a charity out in the UK called the Little Princess Trust, and we donated my hair to them. And in fact, E3D were the ones that shipped it out. I said, this might be the weirdest thing that you've shipped out of your facility, a box full of human hair. And Dave looks over. He's like, you know, I'm actually not certain if that's true, but certainly the weirdest today. I'm like, all right, you know, I'll take it. Duff says beard next. Maybe. We'll see. I'm not saying no, to be clear. I'm not.
It would take a lot of beard hair.
Oh, no. Not to donate the beard, but to shave it on stage to raise a bunch of money. Look, if we can, if it takes me looking like an idiot to raise a ton of money for a charity, F it. I'm in. I don't care. We posted a tweet about some ideas for raising money. There was a hot pepper challenge, which I'm down for. There was a dunk tank, but the dunk tank is full of slime. I'm down for that too. I do not care. If it can help raise money for charities, I'm in. In fact, I used to do some level of grant writing. So, hello, my name is Grant, and I used to do grant writing. It's just a thankless industry full of people that really don't appreciate the work that goes into doing stuff. Anyways, we are tangenting like crazy, because that is not the topic of today. We're going to be talking about input shaping, because input shaping is, well, kind of what's become the new mainstream thing, right? Core XY with input shaping, that's the new mainstream thing. I know there's Core XZ and other stuff that can use input shaping. And obviously you could put input shaping on a regular Cartesian. You can put input shaping on literally any 3D printer. You can put input shaping on it, assuming the, you know, motherboard can handle it. But let's go with the popularized. It's because of Bamboo, right, that the industry's kind of been thrust into input shaping that has effectively tripled print speeds, improved print quality, and enabled machines to be able to outrun their hot ends in a meaningful way, where you need a bigger hot end or a bigger heater, where we just used to do it for fun. Now you need to do it or you can't run that fast. Can we talk a little bit about what the heck input shaping actually is and why it matters?
So what input shaping is? So it is the noise canceling.
Yeah.
And why it matters is as you speed up, as you accelerate faster, right? So it's really the acceleration. Velocity is acceleration is how fast you can get to the speed you want to get to, right? So if you set your perimeters at 100 millimeters a second, let's say,
yep,
but it's only a millimeter for that one turn it has to do, you're never going to get to 100 millimeters unless you have really fast acceleration. So you can kind of just speed it up as quick as possible. Well, when you do that, you're going to get vibrations or resonance on your tool head.
It's going to ring, right? And
it's going to ring. It's called ringing, ghosting.
Yeah, those are like the terms that we have. But it's
Right,
really
they're all the same,
just
and it's really just that ripple effect you see
Mhm.
in your print. And that's no matter what, it's going to happen without some sort of active feedback control or some
Yes.
sort of feedback. So input shaping is more of a feed forward system, more than a feedback system, because you have your G code all done and you have your input shaper basically set by the time you're printing. So it's going to do all the calculations and feed forward the input shaping corrections
Mhm.
as you're going. So every move will have that correction. And what it does is it's just if you can get your print to print the acceleration higher, you can actually get the print to print faster than increasing your velocity or your speed, right? So if I have input shape or an acceleration of 5,000 with 100 millimeters per second perimeter, I can get that print done faster than if I have 200 millimeters per second at 500,
Yep.
because it can get to that top end faster. So you're
Considerably
going to get a
faster.
considerably, yeah, you're going to get a faster. So you're going to get a faster print at a better quality, because even though if you don't have input shaper, you got to go slow. The only
Yep.
way to get rid of the ringing is to go slow. So you're going to go slower, and you're going to have less quality prints than with input shaping. I mean, that's really the bottom line.
Well, now with how good the electronic side has gotten in ADXL, which is the input shaper tool, if you will, the accelerometer, those have gotten so small and so lightweight that you can literally just screw it into a printer, click a button, and it does its whole vibration routine, and boom, you have a machine that runs faster, smoother, and quieter. There's, as far as I can tell, no downside to using
No,
input shaping, but is there actually a downside to it?
there's no doubt. It's free performance. So most on Vorons, most tool heads today will come with an ADXL.
Right.
And so there's a couple. We got to talk. There's two varieties right now in the market for 3D printers. There's the ADXL 345 accelerometer, and then there's the LIS 2DW. The LIS 2DW, in the spec sheet, it looks like a better device.
Okay.
It's not.
Why not?
And the reason it's not is that it has an internal bandwidth filter. It's basically limits the signal coming from the accelerometer itself into your system, and
So
you
you
get these
can miss
crazy.
resonance.
It cuts it off, right? So like the ADXL 345 has a bandwidth of about 1600 hertz, and the LSI 2DW has a bandwidth filter of 400
So it's only
internal.
giving you 400 hertz, or it's
It's only giving
filtering
you
out?
200 because you got to take half for the Nyquist theory, right? It's so if you want to measure a signal, you need to measure at least twice as fast as that signal.
Got it. Okay.
So the ADXL can go to about 800 hertz, the actual signal, versus the LSI 2DW 200 hertz. And you'll see things on it, right? You'll get a disco light show on a spectrogram. It'll do an offset on your graphs. It looks like you have binding, and you just can't tell what's real and what's not. So if you get an accelerometer, you got to make sure it's the ADXL 345. That's the bottom line. Most your Beacon will have it. Some of your EBB 36 toolhead boards will have it. So most I think your LDO Stealth Burner Nighthawk one will have it also.
I don't think I have a Stealth Burner Nighthawk. I have a Gen Alpha Trident, or a Gen Rev A. I don't know. I have an older Trident.
Right. So they
that
gave
we've
you an
been.
accelerometer then on a chip, little
Yes.
chip.
Yes.
That's an
separate chip.
ADXL 345. That's actually a really good one, because of the cable.
Yeah.
So the cable's just a thin cable. That's actually really good.
And
It's
that,
just
because that cable can obviously add some. And this is one of those things, and you're part of this unicorn chasing club where you guys like just try to hammer in perfect input shaping graphs, but tiny dumb things like a cable being heavy can actually impact input shaping quite a bit, right?
it's not just the cable being heavy, it's also how it's routed.
Okay.
So you can use you don't obviously don't want a heavy cable because that's going to pull on the tool head.
Mm-hmm.
Right, wherever the accelerometer is, it's going to pull. So people have been using like Cat 6 cables
Okay. Yeah. Yep.
to wire. That's heavy cable.
It's very heavy, and it's often solid core, so it doesn't bend very well.
Right, and it doesn't bend well.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is if it's not on tool head, you want to do what's called like a waterfall or a snake.
Mm-hmm.
You want that thing to kind of go like this so that it will naturally compress and not to reduce the amount of or the effect of the cable itself on the measurement.
So having that
you don't want to
lightweight,
drag it up on the machine all over the place. You want to,
right?
yeah.
Noted. Okay. So once I get my input shaper figured out on the Trident, take that ADXL off, store it somewhere where I won't lose it, and use it on future printers because it's actually a pretty good system.
The LDO's one is because of the cable.
It's a flat ribbon cable.
It's a
right?
flat ribbon. It has basically no weight.
Yeah.
Which is really good. But it has negatives, right? The flat ribbons, if you unhook them and hook them back in, you start breaking off the little bit of copper.
Yeah, they tend to be very delicate. Right.
Right. And the other end of the cable is the power to your Pi for the LDO kits.
Got to be careful with that, obviously. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. I say that as my Prusa XL is it's off camera, but it's up there. It just made a tool change, and it's the loudest move on that printer is when it does the move, the click, then the movement again to grab the next tool. We're doing a multi-material print because I remembered that I have a multi-material printer, so there's that. Bearded Printer, you're not reading. Thank you, Bearded Printer, but Bearded Printer, go donate to Reth's charity. Thank you for $5, but Reth, I'm just gonna put that right into your charity.
Thank you.
Yeah, we do not want donations today. Tomorrow, sure. Today, no. Go donate it to Reth's charity, the 3D Printing Elves, to help them with their thing. You guys actually just got a pretty serious donation, right?
Yes, Steve Builds and the Peel Poly gave us Steve's previous Magneto X.
Nice.
So we've been using that to print more toys. I mean, I constantly have at least 4 to 5 printers, just 24/7 printing toys out.
Yeah, we did that 1 year with IC3D, and then I said, well, it is difficult for us to dedicate machine time that we could be using to make money to charity. So I said, all right, we will do machine downtime when we know they're not being used. So specifically what I've done is machines that come in for the YouTube channel that it's like, okay, it's going to sit for a little bit. I can't do too much with it. Its entire job will be to 3D print toys. But, I do worry because, of course, there's some liability side of it. I don't know. I like 3D printing toys, but I do worry that they'll get misused, misappropriated, and that kind of thing. And that's why having the value of your own charity, so you know how it works and you know where things go, is, incredibly, incredibly valuable. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about some of these major issues that input shaving solves, right? So this ringing. Why do machines ring? Is it just like belt flexing? Is it, frame flexing? Like, what is the most common thing that, causes these artifacts that we see in 3D prints, especially with printers that don't have input shaping?
So on Vorons right now, the most common thing is umbilical.
Oh, and that's the big wire thing, right?
Right, the big wire. So it used to be tool chains, cable chains.
I got a lot of cable chains on that Trident.
They're heavy.
Yeah, they are. They're incredibly heavy.
They'll slow down your speed. So let's take a regular Trident, right? Just a standard LDO kit. What's going to be your biggest things, right? Your cable chain's not going to be straight on the extrusion.
Okay.
So if it's angled, it has the potential to hit the tool head, because you got to imagine when you're shaking this thing, right? You're shaking it in X and you're shaking it in Y. What else is shaking with it?
Everything. Everything is shaking.
Sorry, so that cable chain, if it's not secured properly, it's going to vibrate.
Yeah.
And that vibration you will see in input shaper. So on a standard Trident or an LDO kit, that's going to be one thing. The other thing is going to be belts. Obviously, are effectively, you can model them as a spring.
Yep.
They're going to do it.
Well, and that's why we have the Kevlar reinforced belts. But I remember back in the day, people would use the white belts, which are often steel bands. And my God, they were bad. Like, they were bad back then, back when we weren't really messing with input shaping. I can't imagine how bad they are for that. And, like, I've been doing this long enough where we used to put springs on our belts, because that is how we tensioned belts back in the day.
Right.
You used a torsion spring, I think.
I think it's that one that goes like this.
Yeah, it was a coil spring.
I don't know what it's called.
I don't know what it's called either, but it was a spring that you put on your belt to tension the belt. And okay, sure, it technically works, but that spring, it's a spring. And I know that might come as a surprise to you that a spring is a spring and springs flex. But that just meant that you literally made your issue of rigging worse.
Right.
Because you gave it ways to flex.
Well, the keybacks are another thing, right? So a lot of people will use keybacks or those badge holders. Yep. That's another spring. It's another spring in the system. And so you want to try to reduce that or somehow take care of that in your system. So you don't want to keep adding springs into it.
But those keybacks and those badge holders and stuff, they're good because they keep the umbilical from falling south of the XY movement and potentially binding up, right? And that's why cable chain makes sense, because the cables don't go anywhere, but there's a problem with that too. So
the keyback is not the way to go. You can do all that without the keyback. The easiest thing to help fix an umbilical is to use a Bowden tube holder. Galvanic makes one. He's another Voron guy, and you just secure your Bowden to that, or secure your umbilical and Bowden to it, and you could have it kind of flop down, because you want your umbilical also to be a waterfall or a very nice smooth transition into the tool head.
Right.
And so that's why umbilicals always like that. Right now is the number one issue. If people make it too tight, they try to.
You're really scaring me here, by the way. I'm like, I think I've made all of these mistakes, and I have
They can all be fixed.
I'm gonna be calling you like, Reth, I don't know what I'm doing. I need help. You're gonna be like,
the other issue people do is
yell at it and start over again. You screwed it up, kid.
The other big issue is the tooth idlers on the front.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the tooth idler doesn't have a washer on top or bottom. So it's a built-in bearing. On the Trident, you look at it, there's no washer on your tooth idler. So that screw that's holding it in, if you put that screw in too tight, you'll actually bind that tooth idler on the XY joint.
So,
or on the other side, if you screw it in too tight, the plastic will actually contract and now start binding that one. So you actually want those screws to be flush with the plastic, because that tooth idler is supposed to naturally go up and down, and it's kind of self-centering.
Right. Yeah, the belt will kind of move it where the belt needs it.
Right. And if it's too tight, it won't do it. You could actually, if you tighten that thing all the way down, you could lock up your X-axis so it won't even move.
I'm sure nothing bad can come of that, right? No,
it's fine.
No, it's totally fine. We have adopted a bit of a bit of a saying around here when it comes to printer problems. We blame Steve Builds. We just outright nothing can be my fault. I am faultless. I am a god. I do nothing wrong ever, and I never lie. So it must obviously be Steve Build's fault, who's actually in the chat. And if you do stick around to the end of the stream, we're going to kick you guys over Steve Build's video. He's going to be working on his salad fork today, which I still absolutely love the name because it's a mini trident. Because what is a mini fork? A salad fork. And it's just hilarious. Mad Cat says to clip that. Yeah, so, you know, the joke was always to blame Steve. And I understand that there are things that are done because if it works for some, it should work for most. And the problem is often, especially the Voron builds, as I've learned the hard way, the Voron build is not designed for the average idiot. Hi, I'm the average idiot. I am not a mechanical engineer. I do not have mechanical engineering training. I have 2 business degrees for whatever that's valued for other people. But, you know, I'm the average person, and the average person should do a lot more research than I did before building a machine.
I think watching those Steve builds or the Nero 3D builds of the Voron printers, just watch them and like really pay attention. They're very helpful. I mean, that's how I built my 2.4 watching Steve builds videos, my very first Voron.
I don't disagree with you, but I wanted to approach this the way that I think the average person would have approached it, which is to do no research. Because I'm fairly certain that a large portion of people that get a Voron have never done this before, have never built a 3D printer from scratch, have done no research other than their buddy built one and they thought it was cool. And yes, my buddies have built them and they think that they're cool. Chris Catlin says the average person reads ahead, and as an average person, they do not read ahead. We don't read ahead. No, they don't. And they find themselves wondering, what the actual hell did I get myself into? Steve says we still need to show you how to properly wrap those belts. Steve, I figured out how to do it myself. It was to completely pull the thing apart, move the belt through, then put it back together. It was faster. But yes, Steve, can we do this at 3D Printopia? Can we make a video of you showing me? That would be awesome if there's going to be a Voron there that we could do it to. That would be absolutely hilarious. The GP says it seems crazy someone would buy a DIY 3D printer and not do research. You're right.
It happens.
It happens all the time. And I said that is the average consumer, the average buyer does little to no research about their printers before they buy them. If you are watching this far in, you're not the average buyer. And I know that that might kind of come as a surprise to you, but you're watching at least 1 hour long podcast about input shaping. You're not the average buyer. The average buyer is not going to find this.
In the helping channel, which I help out on the Voron and tickets and stuff, people having issues, we've had people who have bought the kit, you know, whether kit or self-sourced it.
Yep.
And instantly did all the upgrades.
Yeah, yeah, they'll ship a Theseus it before it even is running, right?
Yeah, like, and that's kind of more difficult to help with. Like, if you're a first-time Voron buyer, build stock, understand the stock, and then go to town.
I did one mod, inverted electronics, because I have a bad back and I am not flipping the stupid printer over that.
That's not a bad mod. Yeah, it's a fairly easy one to do. But we're talking like going straight to BFI idlers, you know, and straight to umbilical, and then they have all the CAN bus issues. Yeah,
I wanted to do CAN bus so bad because I'm like, oh my god, that's gonna make my wiring so much easier. And I'm like, no, stop it. You're
figure out how to do it first.
You're feature creeping yourself. You're making your life harder. Do it the hard way. And I know that that's harder than just using CAN bus. But when you start adding mods, when you start doing all of these things, you're adding so many variables that we can't control. Stop doing that. Yeah, and that's to myself. And if you feel like you're being called out, I was saying that to myself. If you feel like you're being called out, that one's on you. Steve said that he will prep a demo piece. I am very excited. I will make a video about this. It's Steve, we're gonna have way too much fun doing that. I'm just letting you know, we're gonna have way too much fun filming that bit. But yeah, and as Chris Catlett said, the average consumer at this point just buys a bamboo. And if the help channels in our Discord are any, show of what that looks like, when the average consumer has a problem with a bamboo, they're like, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to start. I just bought this thing because I was told that it works. And yeah, the average consumer might buy a bamboo. They love it. Then they're like, ooh, I want to build a Voron because Voron sound like fun. They have done no research.
I mean, we've got in the residence channel on Voron, we've gotten people with keys. We've gotten people with, you name the printer, they've come in and said, what is this? And while some of the principles apply to all Core XYs, I don't know how the other printers are built. So I don't know what they're supposed to look like. You know, like I can tell when something's not right on the other printers. I can't tell you how to fix it. And that was actually what got me motivated to get into the residence testing section, was that I used to work for ASML.
Okay. Help me out. What's ASML?
A Dutch semiconductor equipment manufacturer.
Okay.
They make lithography tools. So right now, if you're printing the most high-tech, or if you're making the most high-tech microchip out there, you're using one of their tools. They're basically have cornered the market on EUV. So part of the thing is you need your system to be very stable. And so that's residents you got to take care of, because they're running their stuff at meters per second to print their microchips. So that was my first foray into it. And they had it characterized like you get this graph, it's going to be this part of this part of this part. So I knew it's possible. So when I started getting into it, like no one really knew what everything meant.
Right.
They just knew it was a bad graph. So I started going out and I built a 350 Trident just to break it. Just put accelerometers all over the place.
I have not
figure out what it's supposed to look like.
I did not build my Trident with the intent of breaking it, but I am almost positive it will occur. Just I am setting the stage for it now. That I'm positive I will break something.
Yeah. And it can be fixed. It can be fixed. That's the beauty of Vorons. You break something, go over and go to one of the channels. I forget what it is. Rescue Ravens. They'll send you a part. Someone will help you out. Get it back up and running.
I'm not in the Voron Discord at the moment. I had a bad experience many years ago, back before they got their act together, and I have avoided it since because I don't know if that's me also trying to be like the average person that wouldn't go to the Discord. Maybe they would. And the GP says get Steve on speed dial. I don't want to do that either, because that is using the fact that I'm a content creator to get special help that the average person wouldn't get. And
the average person on Voron, you just open a ticket and you'll have 2 to 3 people there to help you. Like I understand, like way back in the day, there was wasn't necessarily the best place to be.
No, it was not. It had
like
problems.
Right now, it's like I came in after all that, whatever that was. And so I have very good advice. Like people will spend hours on a help ticket to help you figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And, the rest of the community will help you also. And like, as I said, if you break a part, you did something stupid and it broke, there's Rescue Ravens. They'll just send you the part. You may have to pay for shipping,
That's
but they'll get you up.
Nice.
Yeah. They're just there to help everyone.
See, that is very different from my first interaction. And yes, everyone said, "Oh yeah, you gotta try it now." And okay, sure, it's just a little bit different. And as Bearded Printer says, low expectation is the key to happiness. If you expect the worst and the worst doesn't happen, then that's a win. It is also the key to depression. If you expect the worst and the worst does happen, then you're only self-perpetuating the fact that the worst only happens. I would say expect the average experience, and if it's below it, it happens. If it's above it, great. Don't expect the worst, because then you're setting yourself up that when the worst does happen, it's a confirmation bias. As someone that has had a huge history of always expecting the worst, it is a massive confirmation bias, and I will do a whole series on business at some point again, and talk about confirmation bias in business, but we're not going to go down that path today. So then, if these cable chains, the umbilicals, and all of that are such a big problem when it comes to input shaping, why is it still a thing in the kits? Why haven't they moved over to doing CAN bus stock, or a better umbilical stock? Is it just because this works and we don't want to screw with it? Like, why do you think that occurs?
So the goal of Vorons is to get you build your printer, get you printed.
Okay.
Right. So the stock kit or the stock CAD will do that for you.
Right.
And it will get you printing fast. Right, or as fast used to mean. Right. So you could do the
I will look at it and say, damn, this is speedy, and then I'll go look at Albert 24/7, whatever his name is.
Yeah, there's no comparison. But that's a V0, right? He's using a heavily modified V0, but it's a V0.
Yeah. Like, so, if he lived in California, every time he turned on his printer, the Richter scale would register, movement in his area.
But they want to get you printing, right? So the stock will get you printing, and then once you figured out your printer, because they're all yours, right? Like, even in residence, I could have 2 printers. I have 3 Tridents, all 350 or 300 or 350s, and they all have a different profile, input shaping profile.
Are they close to each other, or no, not at all?
They have the same basic shape, but what happened, like, a little bit, if you want to call it a fingerprint, they have different fingerprints.
Okay, that's fair.
But they'll all print with like 0 resonance. They're just different fingerprints. And so what is issue on one printer is not an issue on the other, right? And that's what you get from building your own. And if you build this stock, you know what it is. Then you can update to the umbilical and all that stuff. The other ethos of Voron is all the parts have to be readily available, so it can't be a single source.
Right.
If you start going CAN bus and some of these other things, now it's more available, but you were kind of limited in the past. So they want to make it as easy as possible. And CAN bus, there's a lot of issues with setting up the firmware still. So it's not as easy as the 24-pin, and then you just connect it straight to the motherboard or the main board, and you're off and running. There's a calibration, or not a setup step that a lot of people have issues with. And if your wires aren't twisted enough, you're going to get errors, or you'll actually get, if you're using an 80XL accelerometer on your tool head and your wires aren't twisted up enough, you'll see that.
Really?
In input shaper graphs. It'll look all jagged.
I am so worried. I should have.
Not to freak you out, but it's all known, right?
We should have done this show after I tried.
But the good thing is, it's a lot of these issues are known. So if you show a graph, like, because we've done a lot of testing on it, because people have helped out. FrixX on Voron actually wrote Shake and Tune. That is a great tool. He basically modified the standard clippers, belt shaper, and input shaper, added a vibrations profile so that you can optimize your motors, because you not only get ghosting and ringing from the acceleration, you'll get motor vibrations translated into your print.
Interesting.
So what you can do with FrixX's Shake Tune is run vibrations profile and find the good spots on your motor and set that for your motor speeds. so you can knock out another vibration.
Because literally the motors themselves can also Oh man. Oh
Like,
man.
there's so much.
I'm like
It's so
I'm
much
getting
more than just the
I
Prusa Mark III that I was dealing with.
I am getting stressed out by
No, but
just
it's easy.
it's easy when you're a unicorn chaser. I'm over here like, oh, this is like
I mean, I got a 40-minute video if you want to watch it on how to set your speeds in your slicer based on the input
okay,
shaping.
that's a 40-minute video that you filmed and edited down most likely. That's
No,
a
no,
three that's a
no. I
3 hour.
don't edit.
You don't edit at
They're all
all?
no.
That's why I do live streams. I don't have to edit.
It's just me rambling for 40 minutes on how to set a slicer.
Oh, well then
That's another thing that's
you
not
didn't need
out
any
there.
prep for this episode. This is just the same thing.
Yeah, my input shaping videos are, I think one is like an hour and a half long. And my wife's like, "Who's watching this?"
I
Like,
bet it's
don't
got
know.
quite a few views. Yeah, because there will be those people that are like, all right, I want to know how it's done, and then they can do it. Yeah, I am there's part of me that really wants to like get this thing running fast. Then there's the other part of me that knows as soon as I'm empowered with the knowledge to make it run faster, I'm going to keep running it faster until I start to break things. Like, can I move a printer fast enough to where the ball bearings start to fail? Great question.
No, you'll get a skip belt by then.
I don't know. You say that, but I'm looking over at Albert over there saying, man, I bet his bearings are heating up enough that you could determine the added heat. I bet it's
how
possible.
often is he adding oil? Because he's probably not doing grease. He's probably doing machine oil.
Mm-hmm.
And how often is he adding that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a very interesting thing.
The easiest way to add some extra speed to your printer is to double shear the back of the motors. Get long boy motors, longer motors.
Excuse me, what? Double shear the back of your motor?
Yeah, so you get a motor shaft that's longer that sticks up through the XY joints.
Oh, put a bearing up
bearing on it. And you can pull, if you go to 9mm belts or even 6mm belts, you can increase the tension, which will result in faster accelerations and maybe not speeds, but speeds a little bit. But you'll get faster. You'll get at least probably 300 to 500 accel faster just by adding a bearing, a longer motor shaft and a bearing.
Because it means the shaft won't bend. Or it won't, let me rephrase that. It won't bend as much.
No, well, it probably won't bend. So if you, without the top support, it doesn't take much to actually bend that shaft, especially on, I think it's the B motor that sits up higher.
Okay.
But if you put an extra bearing on top, you're trying to basically bend the metal like this. And that's a lot tougher to do. So that's a easy mod when you get there. Yeah,
when I get there, if I get there, because there is some level of I just want it to work and work reliably. It's why I still have a bunch of Mark III S's behind me, right?
Yeah, they work.
They work. They work reliably. They are not the fastest. They're not the quietest. They're not the best 3D printer that we have. But what they are is the most reliable 3D printer that we have, period. They work. They work every effing time. And if they don't work for some reason, it is most likely my fault or the bed thermistor has gone. Those are the options that occur with this.
So that is what my Tridents, my 300 Tridents have turned into. And this guy right here, the Switchwire.
Switchwire, right? Yeah.
Yeah. My Tridents and Switchwire 24/7. They're constantly printing. And it's turned into my Prusas. Like I've retired my Mark III now. Because they just go. I just say go and they go.
Yeah. It is always fun to find that point, right, where it just works. And you're like, all right, I'm not messing with it. I'm working on that with my XL currently. I'm giving it a bit of a challenge at the moment. It is a multi-material, so a PLA part with PETG supports. one of the
How's that working
challenges,
for you?
as long as the PETG touches the build plate, amazing. If it is a fully encapsulated support inside of the part, it is challenging because, of course, PETG and PLA don't stick to each other. So I haven't exactly found a way to do it other than it's going to make noise for the first 25% as it doesn't, connect very well. But eventually support finds a way. Just trust the process and it works. And yep, it has. Do I have? No, they're up there. They're up by the printer. I could go get some of the
a
parts.
stealth changer right now from Draft Shift guys.
I really want to do more tool changers.
Yeah.
Honestly, the SV08, which is up 2.4, let's call it what it is. The SV08 tool changer looks like one I could likely get behind.
I believe it's the same guys.
I think it is too. But as a business, Voron's to me, like, I enjoy it as a hobbyist, but I also have to look at things from a business perspective, and there is not a snowball's chance in hell that I would ever do Vorons for a business unless I had someone building them for me.
Yes.
Right?
I mean, you can get a bamboo for a business.
No. Bamboo is not for business.
Well, not your business. Not your business.
Bamboo is not for any business that takes themselves seriously. Period. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I know your position on the matter.
Yeah.
But the fact remains, businesses do use them.
They do, and a lot of them are violating their non-disclosure agreements. And when people learn more about it. I didn't want you to get
started on that rant.
No, look, when people learn more about it, then they will, have to deal with the things that come from that. But
you're right. The Tridents, if you're doing a business, the Trident would be the machine to do. Because it's the simplest build, it's the quickest build time.
You could do one in what, 15 hours or so?
I don't know. I've never speed. I think Nero 3D has speed run through it.
But that's Nero.
But if you start building them for a business, you're going to be able to speed run through them.
That's fair.
And if you start cutting out get the LDO kit, but buy all the extra stuff for the CAN bus and just go straight to CAN bus, you can build them pretty quick.
Yeah, you could certainly have like all right, these are the stock parts, these are my modded parts, remove the stock parts. Mod parts only, do it right from the beginning. Buying
the printed parts from a PIF provider or Fabrico or West 3D.
See, that's got some value to it. And I didn't, but I could have. I said I wanted to print them all myself. Hilariously, the reason our Trident took so long is because I said, I'm going to print them on my bamboo. And that was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. I should have done it on something else. But
I've done PIF before. My first build was a PIF build.
I feel like that should be of someone's first build, is to do a PIF build.
Yeah, but the parts from Fabrico and I believe West 3D are also coming from the same PIF providers. So
it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you're getting PIF parts, and there's a Doc is on Born Discord. He's in charge of that, and he's fanatical about having good quality parts coming out to you.
Yeah, I probably should have done that, but as a creator, I also wanted to do the parts myself. Had I actually used a PIF provider, I wouldn't have screwed up and missed a bunch of parts, and I would have known that doing the colorway the way that I did it was stupid. I have a 5-color Voron. Don't do that. Just don't do that. Don't do that ever.
Thunder Keys is saying West 3D printed parts are not PIF. Okay, thanks, Thunder Keys.
And yes, if you do want to get some awesome filament, as Mad Cat says, we do have a pinned chat message for the printed solid filament giveaway, so go get entered into that as well. Yeah, K2 is really trying to put me into a tangent here. We can talk about that another day, sir. I think you're wrong. But it's because I run a professional business in this industry. Ultimately, I think PIF is probably the right move. That's the print it forward, right? Is that what it means? Yeah. Print it forward. That is probably the right way to do it for a first timer. That way it's like all coming in when you need it, how you need it. It's bagged up. It's Like, I would assume those bags are labeled. You're not just getting a
bucket of parts. I believe they
yeah.
were. When I got mine, I believe there was a bag of parts, and the bag said what was in it, and then there was another bag with another thing. But that helps with residents, because if you've got bad printed 3D parts, especially on your XY joints or your AB motors, it's going to show. You know, if you didn't print them well or didn't do enough infill.
I'm like so afraid that I've like messed up a little setting, because like I looked at the Voron settings and said, I want more than that.
You can.
I used I think they want what, 4 perimeters and 25% infill?
40% infill.
40%. I believe I did an extra perimeter, because there were quite a few parts where it's like, oh my god, there's just a little bit of infill. Screw it. I'm adding an extra perimeter so I don't have to wait that extra time. Yeah. Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see how it works.
You have me so scared right now.
No,
like,
no, I mean,
no,
like
dude.
I said,
I'm like, that trident can just sit there, I guess. It doesn't have to go.
It's not meant to sit there. It's meant to print. You know, you print it out. You always print a Voron cube, and you look at it, and how does it look, and you go from there.
Looks like a cube. All right, we're moving on. It's not a pyramid. We did it right. We're moving on.
But you know, it took me to get into this to figure out actually how to read everyone's calibration cubes, because you see them on printables and you'll see them on Thingiverse, right? But no one tells you how to read that thing.
No, not at all.
So now I know how to read it and what I'm looking for. And so that's another thing. Like when people come into the Voron Discord on the Residence channel, and they get this graphs, you know, ask for a front picture of your printer so we know what it looks like, and then a Voron cube. No infill, no top, just 3 perimeters and 3 bottoms. And you can see all the issues in that, just in the perimeters. You can see if they're going too fast, if they have resonance.
You can see the resonance. Yeah, you can see it vibrating.
Yeah.
Don't do what I do and print it out of colors that are very tough to, like, there's very little chance.
You need lettering. You need lettering in it.
This isn't from a Voron. This was from my GDQ1 Pro, but don't print it out of a color that's very difficult to photograph, because you'll end up struggling to get the right photos for it. So like the first prints you do like, you know, a gray or a black. Do not use white. And if you do use white, make sure it's a white that is not semi-translucent.
Sparkle doesn't help.
Yeah, you need a fully opaque, you know, single color. Don't use silks or anything like that, because like sparkles will hide BS. Carbon fiber hides BS.
They're really good.
And
they're really good at hiding it.
That's why we love that kind of stuff, okay? Like
silks do not hide it.
No, silks exacerbate it quite a bit. Yeah, red is hard to photograph, as John Stern says. Yeah, most camera CMOS and CCD sensors don't like red. And orange, like Prusa orange, terrible to photograph. It's like we have a client that buys parts from us, and they hate layer lines. They don't care what the cost is. They hate layer lines. I said, well, if we print out a carbon fiber, you don't see layers. Like, great, whatever that is, tack the price on. I'm like, it's like a 20% increase in price. I said, we legitimately don't care. We're adding a 0 to what you're charging us, and that's what we sell them for. We really don't care that it's a 20% increase in price. Just make the parts look pretty. And I'm like, okay, no problem.
Print them at smaller layer heights.
Well, you can, but that increases print time exponentially, which...
It didn't seem like they cared.
Well, okay, sure. They don't care. I care. There's a certain level where, all right, we're getting into, I'll just resin print it. I'll put it on the PolyJet. I'll do a powder print instead. You know, where filament doesn't make sense anymore. And that could be, you know, just crazy. John Stern says, no, it increases time linearly. No, it doesn't. It increases it parabolically. Specifically, it is a parabolic You start at the base, which is an exponential increase. Yeah, I'm pretty certain it's I could be wrong, but I'm fairly certain it's an exponential increase. They're all telling me it's linear, but it's a 4x linear. Because
it's still linear if it's 4x. I don't know. I've never looked at the times or like the difference in time, so like that.
Well, now I'm curious. Damn it! Screw you guys for taking me down a rabbit hole of wanting to know more. So, all right, let's dig back into input shaping. So, it's a straight line, hence linear. All right, you all. All right, there's enough people saying it's linear. I guess I'm wrong. I will figure it out later. But let's dig into what a good input shaping graph would be characterized by. Because
single peak.
A single peak and nothing else.
Single peak. A unicorn horn, if you will.
Hence the name.
Unicorn chasing.
So
single peak.
Why would there only be one peak? Is that just that's the resonance of the printer and that's it?
Because, well, you only want one resonance in each axis, right? So most Core XYs have 4 axes actually, right? They have the A motor, the B motor, and then the combinations, right? Your X and Y direction.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
because Core XY one motor moves a 45-degree angle rather than left
right.
and right. So yeah.
Right.
Okay. All right.
But you
I'm
only
tracking.
care about So what was I going to train of thought? So back in the day, Ellis, he's got a print guide. It's the Ellis print guide.
Yeah,
it's like the
Ellis,
Bible of how to set this stuff up, right? He always said if you want better prints, to put it on one of the angles, right? Either your A motor or B motor, which would be 45 or 135.
Right.
And there was kind of like, okay, that makes sense, but why? It's because that's where you're going to get, when you do motor vibrations, right? From shake tune, your vibrations profile, you'll see that you can actually get better vibrations on the 45s.
Because you'll only be running one motor at a time.
One motor.
Rather than them potentially either adding to or canceling each other out. Because like, ideally, if you're moving... So on a Core XY, for those that don't know, if you move one motor, it only moves at the 45s. It doesn't move up, down, left, or right. It moves in a combination of those. So if you do it right, then the motors themselves would cancel each other out. That's ideal, isn't it?
No, because each motor is going to have a vibration. You'll see it. You'll see it in the shake tune. It gives you on the right side of the top right. Okay. It'll give you four graphs inside the graph. It'll give you your A motor, your B motor, then your X, and then your Y. And you'll see that the A and B motors aren't always even, right? Because each motor, while they're the same motor, has
slightly different. Yeah, you can get motors that are closely matched, but they have to be like tested and matched in testing.
Right, but then you throw your belts in it.
Yep.
And the belt's tension is going to be slightly different.
Yep.
So try to get your belt tension even, which your belt tension is just going to be basically. I mean, you can think of it as your belt input shaper, effectively. But you want to get those peaks, a single peak, and both of them to basically be a copy on top of each other. And that's by adjusting your belt tension, your belt routing. Sometimes you'll see that people have the belt riding on a flange, a bearing flange.
Okay.
That'll throw it off.
Really?
And completely. Even if you fix it, like push it back on, you're best to redo belt tension altogether.
Oh, God. I'm getting so... I thought this was going to be a fun podcast, and here I am just getting stressed. Like, I'm like having to move my arms a little bit so I don't start sweating through my shirt. Man, like I'm over here just getting all nervous, and oh man, you're pushing the anxiety here.
No, it's all fixable, and it's all common errors.
Everything is fixable. Yes. Yeah. Just bolt your printer to concrete blocks. Bolt it to the foundation of your house.
No. You're getting ridiculous, sir.
Oh well, I'm sure there are people that are doing stuff like that. It wouldn't.
Yeah, but it's a learning curve, right? That's why you build stuff. You figure out how
Yeah.
to build the printer, and then you go in and you modify it, right?
That's why I did it the way that I did it. And there are so many people that were like, why are you doing it like this? Why are you doing it? I'm like, no.
But you had to do a live stream and you were listening to 15,000 people giving you 15,000 pieces of advice.
You know, honestly, there were times where that was really valuable. And then there were times where the chat disagreed with each other. And I'm like, oh, I have to ignore the chat because otherwise I'm likely to choose the wrong thing. I'm likely to choose the wrong thing. And that's not my goal. My goal is not to do the wrong thing, but it's so possible, right? And that is something that I try to avoid, but it's not always possible. Yeah, that's we're gonna call that a challenge. Yeah. Because certainly, if you watch anybody build a printer, unless it is like a speed build from like a Nero or a Steve build or someone like that, if you
Steve
watch...
Build doesn't do speed builds. He doesn't do speed builds. He's probably one of the more methodical people in how to build the printer.
I was just getting at that whatever it takes a content creator, cut that time in half for you. Generally speaking, it takes us twice as long to build a printer on camera as it does off, at least in my experience. And yes, Steve is incredibly methodical. Quite frankly, I am jealous of how just like woo-saw he is, right? He's always so calm about it. I'm half Cuban. I am just by nature not a very calm person. And I get stressed when I get confused and then I ask for help and the help is only making it worse.
Well, that's why you open a help ticket and then you get that personalized service.
Right. Which only works when you're not live streaming. If you're live streaming, you don't have that. You have to keep moving. It's the odd thing that people don't get if they haven't tried streaming before is that if you're quiet and you're just trying to read something, your chat will be like, oh, is he broken? What's going on? You always have to be on. And Steve has just started streaming for those that want to watch multiple streams. But Steve has really figured out how can I take my time, take the time that I need, be able to communicate that. And now he's got 2 kittens, so that basically if Steve needs time...
the animals help.
I'm looking at my cat. She is sleeping in her cat tree. She doesn't...
You might just need a stuffed animal. Put a stuffed animal right there.
We used to. And then a lot of people were like, what happened to Victoria? Is she not with us anymore? I'm like, no, it's a cat. They go through phases of liking and not liking places to be. She really likes being in her tree right now, so she's in her tree all the damn time. I'm not as cool as Steve. I don't have a dedicated cat cam. I need to. But the cat tree is far enough away from the computer that running a wire to it is just a lot of effort. And it means I have to step over a wire 3 times and not trip every single time I walk from the cat tree to my office. And that is not safe. Guess I'm gonna trip on it at some point. But hey.
Yeah, and this is one area of 3D printing that doesn't translate well to live stream.
Yeah.
I think Steve has tried it a couple times, and at best you can show the graphs, and then because the troubleshooting is not a fun time. And
it's all finesse. It's all like. For those that don't know, I normally talk with the people that come on the show before we go live. And we were talking about how you can look at a graph and determine if a bolt is loose. Yeah, I could not do that.
Yeah, it would be a double peak at your main peak.
So right, but I wouldn't know where that bolt is. You're like, it's probably this bolt.
Oh, I wouldn't know where that bolt is either. I know generally where it would be.
Yeah.
Probably your tool head.
Probably.
But we've had one guy posted some graphs, and I'm like, it's a loose screw somewhere, and it was on his x-axis, and it ended up being in his front idlers. And I'm like, how the hell does that work to your x-axis? So we're
I would love to
constantly
have
surprised.
I want torque values, right? Because if all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, torque this to like 20 inch-pounds, okay, no problem.
So there's a guy named PF Makes.
Okay.
He makes the tension tool for the belts.
Oh yeah. I think I've seen those before.
That's a great tool.
Super cool tool.
Number one tool you guys have to get if you do belts.
I don't have that tool. No,
I think West 3D sells it.
I should be keeping notes. Oh, if West 3D sells it, maybe I can buy one from them at 3D Printopia.
Yeah, and you can get the parts, make your own, or get the pre-built. I bought the pre-built one because it's either that or doing, on the belts, trying to listen for that 110 hertz. But his tool makes it so much easier.
I don't like the guitar tuner system.
No, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Because it matters how big your printer is. The tuning will change based on if your x-axis is not perfectly docked where it needs to be and it's not back, your belt
it's in the middle, right? So it's in the middle of the bed. And it's 150 millimeters from the front idlers.
What if my steps per millimeter isn't set correctly?
Then you'll probably know that when you're homing and stuff, because part of the setup is to home or to hit your end stop and then go to the very front of the bed at 0, 0.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll know that before you start this.
Noted.
But that's a great tool, and it will get you. You can think of it as a coarse and belt tension.
The worst part is it's such a simple tool and it works so well. It works so. I've seen the Fabrico one. I've seen the West 3D one. I guess Big Tree Tech has something similar, and they're they're so simple.
The Big Tree Tech ones, the ones that use the caliper dial, the digital dial.
Okay.
Those you gotta basically ignore that last number.
Oh, the dot, whatever.
Yeah, so it's going to be like some decimal, then basically two digits after it. Just completely put a piece of tape over that last number, because it's over accurate. It's way too accurate for the belts, and no one has really done PF has gone through and done all the tensions and figured out exactly what is what, how much tension is on his meter and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And no one's really done the testing on the digital readout ones to say, oh, when it says this, it's actually this tension. So it's kind of, they give you a general number, I believe, most of those.
Yeah. It's a general number, and you try to match the numbers, from my understanding.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's no scale.
Scale they could both be too loose or both be too tight, but they're the same. I know that I'm off by a tooth. I already know that.
A tooth is not bad.
Yeah. And that's what Steve was telling me. He's like, a tooth is fine. That's livable. But if you're more than a tooth, you want to redo it. Because initially, I think we were 2 or 3 teeth off. And Steve happened to be hanging out.
Something stupid like that actually matters.
Oh, yeah. And he explained it well to me. He's like, well, you only have so much tension on those front idlers that you can work with. So if you're not within one tooth, you're going to run out of screw for your idler tensioner, and you'll never get them the same.
You could also do belt-induced racking.
Yes.
So everyone knows mechanical racking, right?
Yep.
Nero's got another video on mechanical racking, very good.
Belt-induced racking is a huge issue.
Yeah, it's basically you haven't put. So not only do your belts have to be the same teeth in length,
yep,
they have to be the same number of teeth coming out of the left-hand side of the tool head as the right-hand side of the tool head. But the right-hand side doesn't have to be the same number on the left.
Right.
Right. So if it's off, your axis, instead of being flat, to get the same tension, you'll start turning it like this and this. So your belt will be the same tension, but your axis will actually be angled.
And that's like an up or a down angle. We're not talking like a left or a right angle, correct?
We're talking left and right. I'm doing it like this.
Left and right. Okay.
So basically, one side of your x-axis will be closer to the front than the other side. The other thing is you can't just tension one side all the way to 110 hertz, because you'll do belt-induced racking again, because you'll bring that in.
Yeah, you have to bring them both in at the same time, right?
Right. So you do like a half turn on one side, then you go to that other side a half turn, and you got to keep playing that dance.
It's like torquing bolts. If you're gonna go the ugga-duggas, you got to do the ugga-duggas in a star pattern, or slowly.
Like on your wheels on your car.
Yeah.
Yes.
How much torque? Yes. Completely interesting anecdote. I think I told this one to you, but I'll tell it to the chat. Couple of weeks back, I was doing day 2 at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, scanning the players, and there was a player who had a partially torn meniscus, who was going on this machine to measure torque output from his knee, and then to bring him through some physical therapy stuff on a machine. And so he was working, and he was working up. He's like at 80 foot-pounds, 100. I'm like, good Lord. And he's like, watch this. And he just goes for it. 164 foot-pounds. The man was putting out more torque than a Honda Civic on a partially torn meniscus. And I looked at the trainer, I said, what is he? That's insane. What is he normally? He's like, he's good for close to 300 on a good day. I'm like, so he's performing at half of his regular rate, and he's obliterating the torque of a Honda Civic. I said, his leg can put out more foot-pounds than most people's lug nuts. It's just, that blew my mind. I said, all right, I want to try this. I said, but next time,
were you a quarter? Were you a quarter?
If I'm gonna do that kind of thing, I ask before I show up. Say, hey, last time I was there, we did that kind of thing. I would love to try it myself, because I am a guest. I am not here to use their equipment. If the guy said, hey, do you want to try it? Hell yes. But what I'll do is, I have to go back for day 3 at some point, and I will schedule it with the person say that I book everything with. Hey, can I try this machine? I'm kind of curious to see what I can do. And they'll be like, oh yeah, totally, here. This is when no one's going to use it. We'll have someone come over and they'll show you how to use it. That way I'm not interrupting a player.
It would be interesting. It would be interesting to see what you can actually do.
I'm curious.
Corner of a professional athlete.
Yeah. I don't want to say his name. Technically I can, but anyways, I don't know his position because I'm not really big into sports. So I should look up what he does first. Because if he's like a kicker, then there's no chance. But if he's like, I don't know, a running back, maybe I could get lucky. Could the average overweight American who is losing weight, be able to get close to a professional sports athlete with a partially torn meniscus? Anyways, that was just my fun little torque thing. But yeah, unicorn chasing is all about, kind of, as I like to say in the world, chasing the zero, right? You're chasing zeros to get it as good as possible. Do you notice that over time, you might have that perfect peak, but belts are going to stretch, plastic is going to deform over time. You're going to have things that change, like your torque values. Sure, they might be good when you first test it, but your plastic is going to start deforming, and all of a sudden it's not going to be as strong as it was previously. So do you notice that over time these machines have to be retuned?
So the biggest one is belts.
Okay, that makes sense.
Over time, you will have to retension the belts. Generally, what you do is you set it up, right? Like, just as we talked about with the PF Makes tool, running Shake Tune by FrixX. You set that up, and then it's got a break-in period, right? So things are initially going to stretch, right? If you're doing ABS in a heated chamber, you're going to be, as you heat up the chamber, your extrusions. PF Makes did this test.
Yeah, your extrusions will get larger.
They get longer.
Yeah.
And so that actually stretches your belts. You get higher tension when the bed is hot.
Is that good or bad?
Well,
I guess it varies.
From a input shaping perspective, it's neither.
Okay.
Right? It's going to happen. It's fine. And if you start cold, so that's a whole nother question. Do you do input shaping hot or you do it cold?
I would do it hot, right?
I do it cold. Because what happens if you have a problem? You've got to heat that chamber back up to that temperature, right? And everything you do at that point has to be done at that exact same temperature versus doing it at room temperature.
Yeah, but if I'm never going to run the printer at room temperature.
Right, but are you going to fix it? So let's say a part breaks. You've got to put the part in, then heat it back up for another 30 minutes to 45 minutes.
Oh, I'm going to put an active heater in there. But yes, well, I understand the pain.
No active heaters in Vorons.
Why not?
They're worried about, well, it's a safety thing, right? So you just said,
really, they're worried about safety when we have to wire it all ourselves?
Nobody wants someone's printer to burn down.
I should be clear that my active heater is very different from everybody else's. It is not a PTC element. It is. I will show them to you off camera. But it is a that is a big no on the Voron Discord is active heaters. It's a safety thing, right? Then what's a heat bed?
But it's controlled by a thermistor. So there's a thermal fuse that'll pop, and it will go in line with your SSR.
Yes.
So as soon as that pops, there's no more power to the bed.
Yeah.
And it pops at I think 115, 120 degrees C. So
my active heater has that too.
I'm just saying, no active heaters. It's the one thing that they're like, no. I mean, you could do it, just no one on Voron Discord is going to help.
And that's fine because it's a custom built system, so it's not a heavy one at the moment. We're limited to about 50 watts. But I could easily run 3 or 4 of them if I needed more heat. But yeah, it's a thick film resistor. It's a really, really cool piece of tech. And it's in a TO220 package, which is, yeah. Yep.
And there's a cap, right? Huh? So circular at the hat?
No.
TO220?
TO220 has the metal on the back with the screw hole in it. Yeah, it's it looks like a transistor, but it's not. It's a resistor. And so that's what we use for heating.
I don't examine those, by the way.
It's fine. I did not produce this. A very one specific company produces these, and they are bloody expensive, unless Mauser or DigiKey are clearancing certain ones, and then I buy all of those. I can see the package from Newark on my floor right now that has well, it is right there. I guess I could go get it. It's got 80 of them in it. But yeah, they're thick film resistors. And I've talked to the company. They're safe. But we also have a fast reset thermal fuse. So it is a product that I was working on called The Politician. I
remember that.
Yeah, I doubt we're ever going to go public with it. I might open source it.
That was the filter, right?
Yeah, but also has a heater. Because it filters and produces hot air. It's a Politician. And similarly, I'm worried about the liability concerns of if someone screws it up. It shouldn't catch fire, but there's no easy way to guarantee it. And because of that, I'm probably never going to sell them.
I mean, there's talk of some contributors are looking at things like filament dryers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it always comes back to
safety.
Heating elements. Safety.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, literally like the Q1 Pro that we have from Cheaty Tech, where if you touch the PTC, you get shocked. But okay,
this is back to the beginning conversation. You're talking about the average person, right?
Yeah. The average person's not putting a chamber heater in their printer. No.
No. And would you want them to? Right? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, by the time they're at that point, I don't think they're the normal person anymore. And that's kind of the goal with the Trident for me is I'm going to run input shaping my way. Then I'm going to be like, hey, Reth, do you want to come on a live stream with me where we tune it for a unicorn? And then putting on the ADXL.
I'm willing to do that. I mean, so there's a lot more other things to, besides what we've discussed. So Andrew McGurr, he he came up with
The
a
blanket
clipper
mod.
add-in for a TMC auto tune. Because the other aspect of this, right, it doesn't necessarily have to do with resonance per se, but it has to do with the VFAs created by the motor speed.
Right.
So he came up with something called TMC auto tune. So basically, your TMC drivers, as they come from Clipper, everything in Clipper is made for kind of a good enough for everybody.
Right. And that makes
Right.
sense. That's what
it's
you
all
want.
and it's all generic. So when you start doing input shaping, you use shape tune, right? Because that's more specific. And then for the motors, for the TMC drivers, you use auto tune because the values set in your TMC drivers will be based on the actual motors you're using. So you can optimize the actual motor drivers in your X and Y, Z's, and extruder if you want to, for your actual motors to make them quieter, reduce the VFAs you'll get from the motors, because the motors produce a different type of ghosting or ringing than your tool head.
Fair. Makes sense.
And you can start canceling out all this stuff.
Okay.
That's kind of where we're at right now. Like you can cancel out most of the vibrations you're seeing from whatever cause.
So is this like what phase stepping is on the Prussias? Because like my XL, you can't change you can change it. You can't measure and have the machine auto adjust the input shaping on it. But you can do what's called phase stepping, which makes it much quieter. My assumption was that is TMC tuning.
It could be. I'm not clear on it, right? Like we've had discussions, and at that point my eyes glaze over, So
yeah,
I can only take so much information at a time, and when they started talking about that and then getting deep into the math, but
the math can get sticky.
You're correct. Yeah, I believe you're correct that phase stepping is very similar to either doing some sort of input shaping on the motor or a TMC driver aspect.
Bamboo does something similar too, even though they're also measuring input shaping and all that. They've got that motor tuning, but Bamboos don't use stepper drivers. They use H bridges, or at least the X1 Carbon uses H bridges of MOSFETs. So it's a totally different system than like using a TMC 2209 or whatever it might be.
There's a group for the drivers called Danger Clipper, which is a fork of regular Clipper.
Danger Clipper,
DK. And these guys, one of their things is like they'll let you burn down your printer, right? They'll let you cancel all the safety features in Clipper.
Why?
But they do because it's your printer. You do what you want with it. But a couple of things that they do in this area in Realm is they actually add more different kinds of input shaping. They don't use shapers. They also have smoothers, which is a different function. And they add like 5 of them to get a different input shaping curves or the cancellation curves. They also, I believe, on their bleeding edge line, do a pressure advance kind of input shaping. So the pressure advance will like dynamically change, I believe, based upon the current input shaping values.
That's so
they've kind of calibrated all that, and I could be wrong, but they're basically trying to even fine tune it even more. And so there's a lot of like work going on behind the scenes to try to get an even better print at an even faster speed.
So the average person is the average person just putting an ADXL on it, running a basic input shaper graph, letting the printer figure itself out, going from there. Is that good enough, or is there a little bit further that you'd like to see the average person do? Unicorn chasing is probably not where the average person is immediately, but how can they do just a little bit of extra work to get, like, it's that 20% to get 80%, right?
So we have 2 channels in the Voron Discord. We have the Voron Resonance, which is to make it good enough,
right?
And then we have unicorn chasing. The criteria for Voron resonance, the upper criteria where we're just saying you're good enough, is on shake tune to get 0% vibration on EI, or
What's
less than
EI? Sorry.
so you have,
What's it stand for?
okay, I don't know.
Oh, okay.
The standard
All right,
clipper has 5 shapers. It has ZV, which is the most narrow shaper, and you should never use it. Then it has MZV, EI, 2-hump EI, and 3-hump EI. So ZV will get you the highest acceleration. It will also produce the most residual vibration. So it's no good. It's a very narrow shaper, so it won't cancel everything out. MZV and EI are kind of like, sometimes they're actually the same, give you the same result, but they're kind of where you should find yourself. And so if you're at 5% or less in MZV or 0% in EI, it's basically good enough just to start if you're not going to chase unicorns. Then what you do, once you get those set up, the standard person, just run input shaper, run your belt shaper, get your belts in, right? So that they're close enough or good enough. Run your input shaper, then use the acceleration to do your pressure advance and your extrusion multiplier. So if Ella's print guide says about 1,000 for calibrating pressure advance, it's too low. What you'll find is if you do shapers, you should get around 3,500 to 4,600 for a standard Voron. You use that number for your pressure advance because you'll see it in the cube and it'll be a rounding on the side of the cube. So you use that, you probably get around a 0.036 pressure advance at 0.38. And that's kind of how you should calibrate it for the standard person, if that's where we're going with this.
You know, I don't mind getting into the weeds, but I also want to make sure that like part of what I want to do is look at this from an average person's perspective and say, okay, this is good enough, but now let's have some fun, right? As I want to have that kind of fun. Apparently,
Right, so
Frank AF is in the chat. He's a DK dev. He said, DK dev here. It's less about disabling safety features. It's more about exposing every knob that the average user doesn't need. So where Clipper auto sets most of the TMC driver values, Danger Clipper allows, but does not require, manual control of some registers that Clipper would be configuring for you. Okay, so it's Clipper for control freaks.
Oh yeah.
So KFK might not be another, you know, or CFK. CFK might not be a bad way to put it. Clipper or control freak Clipper.
Yeah, you can do a lot with it.
And I don't mind that. Will I ever go down that path? Probably not. Because I there is a part of me that's like, I just want it to friggin' work, man. I don't really care about, like, if I didn't know you, I probably wouldn't go down this unicorn chasing path. It sounds like it could be fun, but it also sounds like it's going to be just monumentally tedious.
You know, one of the first questions I ask people is, what do you want to do, right? Do you want to have good graphs or do you want to print? Because there's a difference. There's a huge difference.
I can't just say yes. I want to just say yes. I want good graphs and I want to print because I like good graphs and I cannot lie.
So then the question is, what's good enough for you, right? Like,
I don't know.
You can get stuck in this world. You can get stuck such that you haven't printed for months because you're chasing the unicorn.
And then there's this other problem of like, if it is that much better than every other printer in the shop, that's also a problem. So it kind of needs to hit the standard for what our printing quality looks like. If it can go above that, fine. But I don't want to go too far above it because now that becomes a special printer rather than another printer on the farm. So chasing zeros can be a problem.
That's why we set the standard for the regular Voron resonance at 5% vibration, residual vibration in MCV, or 0% for EI. We basically said, look, if you can hit this number and your print looks good, you're done, right? There's no need to go further.
Okay.
Because, you know, we want you to print. That's the whole point of the printer, the print.
Like, you know, look, car guys, right? Car guys got the project cars, okay? They don't want to talk about how much money they have to continue on the Honda Civic motion, but you know, they don't want to. They
That's where
don't
the
want to talk about.
comes in.
Yeah, like, you know, could you put forged pistons into a K series motor? Sure. Are you going to get a lot more value out of it? Probably not. But if you enjoy it and it makes you happy, go ahead and do it. But if that means your engine, or in this case, your printer, doesn't run for the next 8 months because you're spending all the time cussing at it because you broke a 10 mil and you can't find your 10 mil socket, then, you know, you kind of knew what you were getting yourself into and you have nobody to blame but yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's why we got 2 channels for whatever you want to do. You know, help you out to get going.
That's convenient because, like, I assume there's a lot of people that tend to bounce back and forth between them. That, like, I want to tune it.
Actually, no,
really,
no.
Huh?
See, most people, when they go into the unicorn chasing, they know what they're getting into. Right, I'm going to be hypercritical on every graph I'm looking at and everything I look at, versus the Voron residents where it's like, you know what, you're good enough. Just start printing. And most people, if they go to the unicorn chasing route, they like that kind of like, what else can I do? What else can I do?
Right, right.
And then it comes down to, okay, what do you want to do?
Is both an answer? Because, like, I definitely I want to explore it, right? But I also want to leave the breadcrumb trail so I know how to get back in case I'm like, nope, this is not for me. I don't want to do this. Please no. And then I can just go back to enjoying myself rather than.
So 48 volts would be a good way to do it.
Oh, well, yeah, because 48 volts will let you just pump as much power as you want it. You can run stepper motors 200 watts a piece. And
so if you go 48 volts though, and you jack your motor's currents up, say around 2 amps, 2.3 amps, somewhere around that range,
100 watts,
you better go CNC mounts.
Yeah. You'll start melting. Well, won't you end up losing? You'll start losing magnet emissivity at about 80 C, won't you?
So you can do it, but you'll hit the glass transition temperature of the ABS way before you start losing steps.
You're like liquid cooling motors at that point, right? Or you're actively cooling your motors.
But put CNC mounts. Go CNC. Put metal on as your AB motor mounts. There's your built-in heat sink.
Yeah, now you got a heat sink too. Wait, do they make Do people make CNC mounts with like a bunch of slots in them already for extra heat sinking properties? Then you could like stick a little fan on top of it so the mount is also a heat sink, but it also has the built-in heat sink.
You don't want the fan.
Why not?
Because you're going to introduce vibrations into the system.
But that's not a lot of vibration though.
But you're right there. Like fans.
Do they really?
It depends on how the fan is mounted.
How do you keep your hot end from overheating then?
But yes.
That's just like one of those things you have to have.
So there are mounts on the bottom of motors that will have a fan, but the problem is they're not secured really well. So it all depends on how you mount stuff. So if you have a plastic part holding a fan in, but it's not mounted right, that's going to vibrate on you.
Totally fair. I'm saying to mount the fan to the CNC mount. So that and the CNC would have like
that's a lot of metal, right? It's a lot of metal. So you have the motor going to your AB motor mounts. Those are connected to an aluminum extrusion, right? You got a huge heat sink at that point. And then if you put heat sinks, just regular heat sinks on the bottom of the motor to kind of drain some heat that way also, you can push it.
I mean, at that point, you might as well just put servos on it and say, screw it, right?
Oh, that's being looked at.
It's also an option.
So these guys are going like there's a guy, Thor, once again on Voron Discord, looking to bring the motors outside of the chamber.
Ah, the Stratasys patent.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's now it's gone. It has it's been 27 years. It's yeah. They can't.
So
do
then
it.
you have Andrew is looking at 4761s, I think they're called, to bring in not stepper
Expired.
motors. They're going
Thank
to
you.
be
Expired.
servo motors with encoder feedback on them. And he
Right.
is just dragged. I mean, it's crazy what he's getting out as far as current into the motor and as far as the speed coming out and how accurate it is.
I've seen that though, where you can add the Hall effect sensors basically to a stepper motor. You do field oriented control, and now all of a sudden you have a poor man's servo at that point, and that's cool if you want to run dummy fast.
Yeah, and it seems to be working. Like this is all like development stuff that they're all kind of trying to push it all.
That's
further.
like, you know, the 0.0000001% of people are like, yeah.
I mean, the future of this for hobbyists is what? Faster.
We're starting to run up against what hot ends can do, right? Where we have to get like the tube, which is just a big, huge, you know, honking monster, but it can, you know, it's like what, 200 watts. It can move like 130, 140 cubic millimeters a second. But at that point, dude, you're starting to run into other issues like how fast can you physically heat the plastic evenly, right? Like I've got a TAS 6 with a Morstruder. You can't print fast on that because you literally can't get heat to the center of the plastic. And that's where those splitting nozzles come in and things like that.
Come in,
yeah, the
right?
CHT stuff comes in.
But CHT can't print certain sparkles it can't print.
It can, it just can get clogged very easy.
It's clogged. Yeah. Carbon fiber would not be good in a CHT, I don't think.
No. It works, but no.
No.
Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah, you're going to hit limits, and people are going to find. I mean, that's the same. Printers were hitting limits, and people discovered how to integrate input shaping to it, and then they got better and faster.
Yep.
You know, it's like 24/7, right? He's going crazy, but his stuff is going to eventually make its way down to where everyone else is using it, just not in a more beautiful package.
What do you think is next for input shaping?
So I think kind of maybe an active, like what I would like to see is an active damping. So right now we're doing a feed forward. I'd like to see like a feedback system also.
Okay.
Because as things move, like right now we're only measuring maybe the effect on 2 millimeters is basically what is going back and forth when it's shaking. So we're not seeing what happens when the tool head is going really fast, the very front of the machine or the very back or anywhere else but that center. And things change as you move it. So maybe an active kind of input shaping system that you might be able to get away with encoders on motors to figure that out. That's kind of where I would like to see it going. More figuring out doing the troubleshooting aspect, right? So more,
yeah.
But that's time. That's people's time.
Yeah,
looking at it,
like a walkthrough, you know, like something to help. Yeah, and that's always the big issue. The big issue comes down to this is an open source project. Most people, if not all of them, are not getting paid. So, you know, how much time can they dedicate before it becomes a burden more than it becomes fun? Speaking of fun, if you do want to help, and, you know, we've been doing this today, do not give us any money today. If you do want to help support the efforts in the industry, I'm going to ask you today to support Reth's charity, the 3D Printing Elves. It is linked in the description, and let's see if I still... Nope, I don't have it copied anymore. Let me grab it and recopy it. Or if one of the mods can do it, that'd be great to post the link to the charity. So if you want to donate to Reth's charity to help get some toys printed for kids, please do. It's 501c3, all that kind of thing. We'd love to help him raise some money this week.
So Jacobs in chat is saying he wants to see an actual diagnosis tool.
That would be beautiful. I would love to see something like that.
Incredibly difficult.
Yeah, like some sort of like UI, like rep firmware UI where it walks you through.
One of the problems with that, so that's been looked at. That actually has been looked at to do. And it's like one of the issues is none of these machines are coming off an assembly line.
Right. They're all a little bit different.
All a little bit different. Everyone's a unique little unicorn going on here, unique butterfly. So you can't sit there and qualify every single one.
Right.
Because they're not being built the same. They're not constructed of the same materials. And we don't have enough graphs, to be honest with you, to plug and chug it into some sort of AI, system to give us an answer back.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now we can diagnose it down to you have a screw loose. I think it's in the tool head. Or
and I can just go through and check it.
You go through and or like, you don't have filament in your extruder. Put a piece of filament in there, stop the extruder idler from vibrating. That's probably what's causing it.
I got some screws loose, but it's probably not in my tool head. Well, it's in this tool's head, but that'd be a fun little branding thing. We have some screws loose, but we know where they are.
So Jacob said also you being meant. What does he say? A gallery of those graphs. On my GitHub, I have a
link in the description.
PowerPoint to what's it called? I'll tell you what's the file. How to read input shaping graphs, and it gives a bunch of different examples. Fricks on his Shake Tune has a bunch of in his GitHub for Shake Tune has a bunch of different examples of what it looks like for these different things.
Now that's valuable. That would be very valuable to me, because if I can see, hey, this is good, hey, this is bad, hey, this is why this is bad, I can compare it to mine and say, okay, from the looks of it, I got a screw loose, maybe a belt is a little bit longer than the other one, the belt tension isn't the same, because I can do a lot of that troubleshooting myself before I have to be like, help me 3D printing Discord Voron server, you're my only hope kind of thing, where I can look at doing it before I start to ask for help. Because if I can solve the problem myself, it's the teach a man to fish, right? It's that ideology where if I can learn to solve the issue myself, I'm now empowered to understand it in the future rather than saying somebody else fix it for me. And that's why my Trident has taken a lot longer than I wanted it to, because I want to learn how to do it all myself rather than have to rely on a live chat of people, some of which who are making fun of me, some of which who are trying to help, some of which who are trying to help and doing it wrong. I want to learn to do a lot of it myself so that I'm not stuck always relying on others.
And sometimes, we get people coming in saying, look, I looked through your graphs, watched your video, whatever, and I think this is what this is showing me. Do you agree? And we'll have a nice discussion, and we'll kind of figure out if that's, you got the right answer. That's what it is. Or it's got this extra little thing going on here. You might want to also look at this.
And that's probably smart for a first timer. If they're looking to get a little bit of knowledge, they can look at your GitHub, find what their graph looks the most like, but then say, hey, I was checking out Reth's GitHub. This is what I saw. This is what mine looks like. I believe, based on the totality of evidence in front of me, that this is my issue. Can somebody confirm or deny that I'm moving in the right direction? That's like, oh man, if all users did that, oh man, the job of tech support.
A lot do. Like a lot of times I'm answering the same question, right? And or saying the same thing. I need all your graphs and a picture of in front of your printer to really help you. But with those kind of 4 things, we can start figuring it out. My wife tells me that I need to tell people that they can join us at 3D Printing Elves. If they're local, if they want to print toys, we do a toys for filament exchange. You bring us toys, we give you a bunch of filament. And so generally locals for that, because we're not in a position to ship filament out to people.
It's too expensive.
Yeah, it really is. But if you want, print us toys, bring them by, send me an email, and we will bring you toys. We're going to be at the Voron Reno, Reno Vice.
Yep.
We're going to be doing a toy for filament exchange there. So you bring your toys, go home with some filament.
Nice. Yeah, and, you know, if you do want to win some filament, maybe to get started on producing these toys, you can use the pinned chat message here to enter to win some printed solid Jesse filament. Yes, I did use that for a call to action. It works so well to just do that. There are some times where I'm shameless about it, but there are other times where I'm absolutely not. Yeah.
Can I answer Spark on Tap's question?
Just repeat it, but sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So Spark on Tap, the difference between an LIS2W and a 8XL 345 is the internal bandwidth filter of the LSI 2DW. It's only set at 400 hertz, so it's a lot less. What ends up happening with an LSI 2W is you get a disco light show in the spectrogram, and you also get a offset on your input shaping graph such that it looks like you have binding. So always use an AXL 345. So we're not in NorCal, we're in Central California, almost in the exact middle of the state.
Mad Cat said NorCal earlier, so I just went with that.
So there's a city called Bakersfield.
Okay.
That is kind of a de facto between the Southern California and Northern California.
I'm sorry. I didn't want to
closer
offend.
to the middle.
Didn't want to offend. You know, I know the SoCal and NorCal. There's, you know.
Doesn't matter to me. I've lived in both.
Mad Cat says Fresno's pretty close to the middle, but he calls it NorCal. Oh, I don't know, brother. I don't know. Them might be fighting words. I don't know. Jacob says, I'm sure Reth will give you an award if you could blow up your Raspberry Pi with IS.
That's actually not too hard.
What if I determine what IS actually stands for and take care of that later this afternoon? No, Raspberry Pis are too precious right now to destroy.
Test the vibrations profile test of Shake Tune. If you set your max speed too high, it will basically just kill the Pi.
Like
you
just
can restart it.
Done.
Yeah, it'll be done. You could restart it and it'll start over, right? But you basically have overwhelmed it that much that kill it.
Yeah, I'm like, you mean like we're shorting it out like it never works again? No.
But it will hang it up. It will freeze it.
Oh yeah, well, you know.
So too many calculations.
I have a
Pi limit that one to about 200.
I think I put a Pi 3B in my. I have 4s. I have a couple of 4s.
Put a 4. If you're gonna run Shake Tune, put a 4.
I have a lot more 3s. I don't want to keep the 4s. So
you might not be able to run vibrations profile with a 3.
Dumb question. Could I put the 4 in, do all the calculations, then replace it with a 3 to do all the?
It should work. Yeah.
Okay. I'm fine with that. See, because then the 4 becomes the initial like tuning, and then the 3 is the one that actually does the heavy lifting. Because, yeah, I've got like 8 or 9 3s in stock that I bought for retail. Crazy, I know, but I only have 2. I have 2 Pi 4 gigs that are not being used, that aren't already like deployed somehow.
I'm all out of Pis. I had 1 extra and I decided to build a cell changer.
I can check Micro Center when we go up to 3D Printopia and send you some if you want.
No, they're not scarce anymore.
Are they not? I haven't looked.
No, you can get them now.
I guess now with the 5, the 4s have now become easier to find. So
yeah,
since it's a completely different, it's not the RP 2040 anymore. It's the 2235 or something like that.
The RP 2040 is in there, not in the Pi. It's in the Pico.
What's in the Pi then?
It's a Broadcom chip.
I thought I had a Pi over here to look at. Oh, I do. Hold on. What are you? Let's take the...
I think it's a Broadcom something or other.
It is a Broadcom. is a Broadcom TN1612, I guess. Although there's a lot more to it. There's like a BCM number. And this is a 3B. This is a 3B V1.2. I don't know. It's a spare.
The RP2040 is a microcontroller, I believe.
See,
and that's more of like an SoC.
This is where your particular flavor of I know exactly what I'm talking about, you're wrong comes into play. No, you do.
No, I generally get things wrong and have to ask somebody else.
There's Frank. Yep, uses the BCM 2835 SoC. F Broadcom, Thomas says. No, F Spectrum, because we've dropped 4% of this entire podcast to YouTube. I'm upset about it. 3.7% to be more specific. But Reth, is there anything you'd like to leave the folks at home with? Any words of wisdom or things like that that you would like to leave the folks at home with before we call this, draw some filament and send them over to go hang out with Steve Builds?
So buy a PFMix tension tool.
Okay.
To get your belt tension in. Install ShapeTune and install TSMC AutoTune.
Okay.
And those three things will help you out to solve your resonance problems. And then, of course, hit us up on Voron Discord. If you don't have a Voron printer, I can try to help you. I may not be able to give you the answer, but I can kind of hopefully point you in the right direction. So, yeah. Hey, well, and thank you for supporting our 3D Printing Elves.
Yeah, let me see. We started the podcast. You guys are at like $177. I think you're at $261 and change right now. So thank you all for donating to the elves to enable them, I really appreciate it. To do that kind of thing. Thank you all for being awesome and being part of the community. We were hoping to be able to get it through YouTube where I could just, say, hey, whatever you guys donate goes right to their charity, but it didn't work out. We tried. It should have worked, but for some reason, YouTube is mad at us, so it didn't. So thank you to all of you that did go to the donate page for the 3D Printing Elves. Of course, it is 501c3. It is tax deductible. And if you are listening back to this audio only, or you are watching this back later on, please, if you do got a couple of bucks to spare, go give it over to the 3D Printing Elves to help them, well, get toys out to kids all over the areas. But of course, stay tuned. We're going to do the outro. That means I end the recording for audio only, but stay tuned because we're going to give away some filament. That is all we have for you all today. This has been Input Shaping and Unicorn Chasing with Reth. Stay safe out there. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. Have a good one. Okay, we're done recording. Recording is done. How many spools should we give away? How many spools do you want to give away today?
I don't know. How about 3?
You want to give away 3? I think 3's a good
what's your
number.
standard number? I don't know. Is it 1, your standard?
3's fine. What? Who's mad at me? Oh, Bamboo's mad. Go figure. Yeah, we can do 3. So if you haven't yet, go enter the filament giveaway. It is in the pinned comment. We got 29 responses. So right now, you've got a better than 10% chance of winning. Like, we had like upwards of 100 people watching.
Print solid, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That's good filament.
It is good filament. Yeah, I have closed the responses. Let's sort by A to Z. That's for timestamps only. I do that for A to Z for timestamps. Quite a few of you that have already won entered. But okay, sure. Quite a few of you that have already won this month. Okay. Wheel of Names. Shuffle. Did everybody do the math right? That's the other thing I got to figure out is if everybody did the math right. Uh-oh. Chrome got mad. Okay, we're good. Everybody... not everybody did the math right. It's not even that difficult to do the math right. Literally the first winner is someone that's already won. All right, redrawing another name. Redrawing a name. Let's see. I feel like you've won recently, but I guess not. Tool Fool, you win a roll of printed solid filament. Make sure to reach out to me via Twitter or Discord to get everything handled. I guess, or you can email me if that works too, but I do prefer Twitter or Discord. Next one up. I think he's won recently, has he not? No? All right, Dom, you get a roll of filament. Mr. Geek Toy Box himself gets.
So this last one has to be Thunder Keys.
Why does it have to be Thunder Keys?
Because he always wins these things.
Is Thunder Keys even in my list?
Oh, hopefully not, because I really don't want him to win.
Thunder Keys is in my list.
we take him out so he doesn't win?
I mean, I could. But he didn't win, so it's fine.
Oh.
Let me make sure this person did the math right. Where's their name?
There was a period of time, I'm just playing with Thunder Keys. There was a period of time where
they were always winning.
He was winning like everybody's filament giveaway.
Hey, you know, that's the way it goes. Fruitanical. Sure. You won as well. So those are our 3 rolls. Giving away some filament. So Thunder Key says, "Oh yes, poor me." Frank AF said, "If I win, I want the filament to go to Reth's charity." I did offer some filament, but I guess you guys just got quite a bit.
We were lucky, and Micro Center was very gracious to us, very nice, and they gave us several thousand rolls of filament.
Yeah, so Reth doesn't need more filament.
No, I'd rather go to you guys to print toys for me.
So Dom said to send it to you, but I have Dom's address, so he can't stop me. And you know, maybe Dom just gets neon pink just for that reason. And it's because neon pink is the smelliest. Whatever the colorant is that makes neon pink. Yeah, the neon pink from Printed Solid smells really weird.
I had one roll that I haven't printed enough of it to know. I use a lot of their gray and browns.
People are like, blacks. "Oh, it smells like cat piss." No, it doesn't. As a bona fide, like literally, I have my cat on my shirt as a bona fide childless cat dad over here. No, it doesn't. Y'all are wrong. You don't have an idea of what a cat piss smells like, but it does smell weird. It is weird.
Slime green one. They have the slime one, right?
Yeah, they have slime green glitter, and I think there's a slimer green as well, but that might have been renamed.
Yeah. The slime green glitter was a good one for Halloween toys.
Yeah, their gold winter glitter is one of my favorites. But for those that use Ember Prototypes plates, they do stain Ember Prototypes plates.
Really?
Yeah, my Ember Prototypes plate has some yellow areas or some gold areas on it because there is so much. So Brad's orange will do it. Gold winter glitter will do it. I think the green, they put so much colorant into some of these colors that the pigment will literally get stuck to build plates. It's fine because regular build plates, it comes off after a couple of prints, but it's been a lot of prints on my Ember plate, and it is still yellow in some areas. It's fine. The color doesn't transfer to the parts.
I actually never. So I had a period of time where I was going through maybe about 100 rolls of their stuff, different colors, and I never had a discoloration of filament.
And Dom asked if it transfers to other prints. I've never had it. It just goes away. I don't understand it. I'm not, not my background. Not my background. I don't get it. Not my background.
Mad Cat, you can print the toys out of PETG, ASA, ABS, PLA. Just no filled materials, so no like carbon fiber, glass fiber, or wood. Nothing with like, there's a filament out there that actually has like a stone dust in it. Nothing like that. So just your straight filaments. Glitter's okay, because it's usually encased in the plastic. But just nothing that'll, because these toys are going to go kids' mouths.
eventually. So nothing that will get flake off.
Yeah, regular materials, please. Simple,
Yeah.
simple.
No TPU either, because that doesn't work well.
No, it's also a pain in the ass to print. Like, why make it harder on yourself? All right, I'm gonna send you all to go hang out with Mr. Steve Builds. Remember to just, I don't know, give him crap for like 10 seconds or something. I don't know. Go have fun over there. Thank you all for watching. We will see you later. Enjoy.